Hey guys! Welcome to something a little different and something pretty personal for me. If you remember a while back, one of the YouTube fads that have existed over the years has been the Draw My Life series. And, well, this is kinda like that, but not quite. Mainly because my life's not particularly interesting to go over, and I can't draw. So, we're going to focus on the important bits. This is kind of an introduction to how I was and how I grew into games. And before you click away or before, anyone asks a question, yes, this does lead into the final announcement for what is already pretty obvious, but it's the next Let's Play. So bear with me. I think this is going to help explain why I'm going to do the next Let's Play the way I want to do it. Now, I was born in March of 1988 up in Canada on the West Coast. It's where I still am to this day. I've moved around a whole one time, but yeah, I've been on the West Coast of Canada for pretty much my whole life. When I grew up, my dad was into Pac-Man, so my first kind of introduction to video gaming was my dad playing Pac-Man. And, well, he's not particularly good at it, and neither am I for that matter. It was kind of my introduction to what a video game was. Considering the timing of, when I would have been exposed to this, it would have been in the very early 90s. So I would have been exposed to a little bit of Pac-Man, maybe some Space Invaders. And then we moved. And in the new city that we settled in, my parents bought themselves a house. And this house, well, they rented out the basement. In the basement of this house, early on, probably when I was, I don't know, 4, 5, 6, something like that. The renter in the basement was a college student. It was a young lady. Can't recall her name anymore. Been 25 plus years. So my memory's not so great. And, well, she rented out the basement suite of this house. Well, one day, I have no idea how this happened, but, 5, maybe 6-year-old me, at some point, I managed to make my way into the basement suite, and she was playing a video game. I didn't know much about video games at the time. All I knew was that, my dad played Pac-Man, and I wasn't very good at it, and he was better than me, and so I didn't really care too much. Well, what she was playing was this. And my emulator will not behave. It keeps changing the audio levels on me. Well, that's what post is for. She was playing The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. This was my first introduction to console gaming. She let me play this game for just a little while. I don't know, 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes. And I went around and I whacked some guys with swords and went through part of the escape sequence in Hyrule Castle, and that was pretty much all I managed to do. But it lit a fire in me. And the next thing I did was I asked for a console for Christmas. That console, I'm just gonna pause that so I can load up more games. That console eventually came, and it was the Super Nintendo. And the Super Nintendo came with one game. And that tells you what it is. That was Super Mario World. Now, me being a dumb kid at the time, I was trying to figure out as I was playing this game for the first time where my sword was. Now, I've told this story once or twice before, but I think it bears repeating. I had basically learned about what a video game was through this console. At different times over the next few years, I learned to get into some new games. We ended up getting an original NES from, I believe, my neighbor across the street, so I played some of the classic games through that as well. So I got kind of used to playing a little bit of this and a little bit of that. We got some Mario. Let's see, what else did we get? We definitely got some of this. I played the crap out of Mario Kart, and I used to be really good. Well, I guess on a competitive level I was never good, but on, competitive with the friends that I had at the time as, young kids, 5 to 10, I was decent at least. It's not like I was always in last place or anything like that. I was usually up at the front with everybody else, the rest of my friends, and doing reasonably well. Now when I try and play this game, I suck terribly at it, so I just kind of stopped playing it, to be quite honest. But, I used to play a wide variety of different games. Games like ActRaiser, a game I actually have already done a Let's Play of, and it's on the channel if you want to check it out. I didn't get into all of the big games that everybody else at that time was playing. Oddly enough, a game that now I'm actually, well, a little while ago started playing for the very first time. Super Metroid was a game I never played as a kid. It was something that never showed up in any of the things I looked at, and so it's something that I never really played. What I did spend a lot of time playing was this series. Donkey Kong Country was a game that I owned, so I played this one more than anything else. One of my friends, a couple of brothers, they owned Donkey Kong Country 2, so I would go to their place to play that one. Another one of my friends had Donkey Kong 3, so I went to his place to play that game. So my experience with the other two games was a lot less than it used to be. Or, well, than with this game. Just because this game, I own, so I would play it whenever the hell I wanted. The other ones, we had to coordinate times. And of course, they would come over to my house to play this one. And of course, each person who owned their respective games was usually the best at that particular game. But we all had fun with it. I had another friend who actually had Final Fantasy Mystic Quest. The thing is, at the time, I didn't know they had Mystic Quest, and they may have not even had it at that point. When we finally actually played this game was years later, after we all had PlayStations. I'm not sure what caused us to go back and hook up our Super Nintendos to play this game, but he had this game, and that's how I was introduced to that. Now, the reason why I mention that is because on the Super Nintendo, I had never heard of a Final Fantasy game. I had never heard of a Final Fantasy game. I was spending more time playing games like this. I actually booted this one up a little earlier on today, just to kind of see if this was the right one. And I still remember this animation because I saw it so damn much, because I knew the cheat method of scoring from just after the blue line. And I still remember this music, and it just brought a wave of nostalgia back for me, and I almost want to go and play this game again, just for the nostalgia kicks. It's not a good game by any stretch of the imagination. It was actually kind of irritating to play. Anytime a player got near you, you'd lose the puck or you'd fall down. It just kind of sucked, and there was only one good way to score, and that was the cheat method that would always work as long as you were in the right spot. So yeah, I'm from up in Canada. I played a lot of hockey games. In fact, I played both this one.
EA Sports. It's in the game.
Fuck you, EA! You killed Ultima! Fuck you!
And yes, EA has done many bad things since then, but back in the day, they actually made video games that I enjoyed. surprisingly enough. Now, I played both the 94 version and this one, which is the 95 version. This one I'm more familiar with, but the other one, there's actually a relatively interesting story with the other one there. Hockey 94 was one I had actually lent to a neighbor, and their house was broken into while they had it. My friend lost his system, his games, this game that he was borrowing from me, and I can't remember what else they lost, but it was a kind of a wake-up call because back then we didn't really lock doors as much, and you know, it's a little suburb of the city, so it's not like we were worried about being broken into really all that much. And I don't know, it just kind of made us more aware of what was going on. But lo and behold, I played lots of different types of games, including this one. I played a wide variety of genres, all different types of games, stuff that was interesting to me at the time, and basically I just wanted to play video games with my friends and have a bunch of fun. Well, there was one game that I played more than any other, and that was not Mortal Kombat, though I was semi-decent at this one. I could never beat it. I think I got to Shao Kahn one time. Kintaro kicked my ass the vast majority of the time. He was abusive, and Shang Tsung kicked my ass most of the other times I didn't even get to Kintaro, but, you know, whatever. I basically didn't have any RPGs at the time. I was more interested in, you know, games that were like Mario, or games that were like Zelda, or games that had little bits of each, you know, so side-scrollers, beat-em-ups, those types of games. I played a bunch of this, that, and the other thing. Well, one day for my birthday, it had to have been 96 based on what based on kind of how I've looked into it when this game was actually released. Well, back then it would have been 96, my birthday was in March, and I got a new Super Nintendo game. And that Super Nintendo game ended up shaping my entire love of video games in a completely different direction. And I'm going to play something here for you that goes back a long way. This is the first few seconds of the very first video I ever uploaded. It has since been removed from the channel.
Hello guys, I'm Evil Kronos, and because everyone else has already started doing it, and I'm one to be a very lazy follower, I'm gonna start Let's Playing. And unfortunately for everyone who loves this game as much as I do, this will not be my first game.
Yeah, that audio hiss, and that lip smack, and that first microphone, all that bad stuff. Yeah, that was from Christmas one year, and to be quite honest, I don't even remember which year that was, but yeah, like I've deleted these videos. I still have the files, but I've deleted them from YouTube just because they're not real good attractors to the channel when your quality, you know, your audio quality and your delivery and all that is just, you know, flat out terrible. But yeah. The game that changed everything was Chrono Trigger. Oddly enough, it was my parents who got me this game. This was a game that I had never played before. It was a game I had never heard of. What drew my parents to it was the time travel mechanic and the fact that it might teach me about consequences. And for that alone, that was the primary reason why they bought me this game. And it made a huge difference on me. They bought me this one year, and when I got my PlayStation a few years later, it came with Final Fantasy VII. It just happened to be the greatest hits game that was bundled with the PlayStation that particular year. And, well, that one also shaped how I went forward with my video game habit and at times addiction. The fact that these games were able to draw me so in is due primarily to two things. One, that music. Right now, I'm sitting in my chair. I have goosebumps listening to this music. Music is something I've never been able to compose or produce very well. We did recorder and ukulele in elementary school, and I was always terrible at all of them. I was never very good at it. But when it came to listening to things, the first custom CD, when everyone was downloading music and burning their own CDs, the first one that I made was all songs from video games. The first song on that album was Time Scar from Chrono Cross. This song, I believe, was also on there, as was the song that's going to play when we get to this part of the game. And another song for a character that's associated with the character that's in this particular location of this game. But it also had songs like Anxious Hearts from Final Fantasy VII, and many other songs that I just absolutely loved. But it was all video game music. This music drew me into these worlds probably about as much, if not more, than the other really important aspect of it for me anyway, in terms of drawing me in, and that was the stories. When I used to play games, it was just with my friends for fun. And when it comes to RPGs, it wasn't as much as of a social experiment, though that was definitely part of it. But it was the fact that I wanted to know what happened next. I was always a big reader as a kid, not difficult books or anything like that, the Hardy Boys, the Goosebumps books. There's a number of other, kid series, aimed at like 10-year-olds that I read a whole bunch of. Always would get them from the library or the book library program or whatever. But there was lots of stuff like that I would read, and I would always get really into the stories. Stories were able to really manipulate my emotions quite well, especially at a young age. And the thing is, well, it really changed how I looked at video games and what I wanted to do with them and how I wanted to play them and which games I wanted to play. And that leads me to this. This was my favorite game of all time when I first finished it. And to this day, that hasn't changed. There have been times where I've played other games like Final Fantasy VII, maybe Final Fantasy X, and they did a little jockeying of position while I was playing them for the first time. But at the end of the day, I've always come back to this one, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. This is my favorite game of all time, and because I have so many memories of this game, I wanted to use that to make this a somewhat unique Let's Play. I've done a reasonable amount of Let's Plays now, and with most of them after, I would say probably, including Legend of Dragoon, think pretty much everything after that, I did at least something at least semi-unique in each of the Let's Plays I've done. It's something that I've always kind of tried to do. You know, in the previous one in Final Fantasy VIII, I broke everything. That was something I hadn't done in any of the other games. You know, I'd shown off things like that in Final Fantasy V, but that wasn't kind of the main purpose of what I was doing there. In Final Fantasy VIII, the main thing that I did is I broke everything. Xenogears, I completely went way overboard with my research and tried to relay as much of the alliterations and the illusions, and all the meaning that I could find in that game, which even led to me reading like college papers. So for this game, what I want to do is, well, I haven't actually done a test run. This is the game I know better than any other game I've ever played. There's plenty of people who know more about this game than me, that's for sure, but there's a lot that I know about this game, at least, you know, as far as, you know, a casual perspective goes. I don't know lots of speed tech, and I can't do Lalbo's shell skip, which is a ridiculous glitch if you ever watch it. It's just completely crazy. But, you know, there's lots of stuff I don't know, but there's a lot of the base game that I know reasonably well. So the purpose of this Let's Play, well, I'll still be going over some strategies, and I'll still be showing where all the treasure is and everything like that, like I always do. What I want to do with this one is I want to share with you guys a more personal aspect. I want to share with you as many of the stories and experiences I had with this game growing up as I can. And considering how much of a personal project that's going to be, that's why I wanted to kind of go about this a little bit different and give it a little bit of a different introduction than I would a typical Let's Play. I didn't want to go way overboard with this at the start of the Let's Play and then, you know, have everybody turn away because I'm not actually playing the game. So that's why I decided to set it up this way. Now, the primary reason, it's actually two reasons, why I'm working on doing it this way is, well, two runs of this game that I've seen recently. One was I believe it was the SGDQ run by Puexel at the end of SGDQ last year? When was that? That would have been, yeah, here in 2019, no, this year. That run, I'm not sure when it was. I think, I shouldn't mention any of the places, but I'm pretty sure I know where. But at some point, everyone just kind of stopped talking and they were listening to the music. And so was I. I was watching this live, and I don't get a lot of opportunity to watch you know, any of the speedrun marathons live, just because I've always got stuff to do and I usually just don't have the time. But I think it was like the ending of it was on a Sunday or something like that, and I just had the time that, or no, maybe it was a Saturday, I can't remember. But I had time that day. I went to the gym in the morning, I got home, and I sat there and I watched Andy and Ivan's run, and then I watched Puexel's run. I basically just sat in front of my screen for like 8 hours straight. Not the most productive use of my time, but when they stopped to listen to the music for a second, it hit me again. And, you know, the music does this to me a lot. And, you know, I have the soundtrack, I listen to the music too much probably, and there's a lot of times where it's just, oh yeah, that's Chrono Trigger music, I love it, and I just listen to it. But there are those times where it just kind of hits a nostalgia bone, and it's like, okay, I really need to play this again. And that's what happened here. And in and around the same time, somebody else was doing a Let's Play of this game. People have already mentioned this in the comments of the teaser videos. Chugga Conroy is the other inspiration here. Now, I mean no disrespect by this, but he has this ability with some of his Let's Plays to bring almost a childlike mentality and appreciation for things that in our current climate and our current world is very difficult to come by. The world is just, so crazy that it's hard to have that feeling anymore. It's hard to just, look at things with innocent eyes. Everything, the world is crazy, and the doldrums of everyday life and everything like that, and it's just difficult to get into that mode again. Well, he was able to share some of his own personal stories with this game that really got me thinking, and I wanted to be able to share my personal stories with this game as well. Now, if anyone has watched his Let's Play, this is going to be quite a bit different for a couple of reasons. One, he didn't get to experience the game until later, and he played it on the DS version. Me, as I said, I grew up with this game on the Super Nintendo. Most of my stories are actually, from my childhood as I was growing up. And because of that, I'm going to be sharing with you the original Super Nintendo version of the game with the original script by Ted Woolsey. I believe Woolsey did the translation for this game. Either way, I always just assume it's Woolsey if it's a Square game and it's on the Super Nintendo, just because he was so well known for doing that. But anyway, so I will be providing you pretty much all the information you're going to need. I haven't done any research. I haven't played this game in probably a couple of years now. And so, I'm not going to have everything hardwired in my head, but I'm going to have more than enough to be able to provide you with strategies, how to do things, where to find things, what to buy, what not to buy, those types of things. I'm not going to have every little nitty-gritty detail down perfectly, but more than anything, I want to share with you guys some of the things that I was able to experience when I first played this game. Not only in my first playthrough, but my first few playthroughs, because I've played through this game more than any other game I've ever played through. More than 20 times regular New Game runs, and if we include New Game Plus, that number skyrockets. So yeah, there's a lot of times that I've played this game. I used to play it pretty much religiously once a year, and that was only when I got older. Before then, it was even more often. Now, the reason why this LP hasn't already started is mainly due to my energy levels. I have not had the energy to start even recording this yet, as of recording this episode here. But hopefully, I will be able to get that time and that motivation and that energy back, because I do not want to half-ass this. This is my favorite game of all time, and I want to give it the respect that it deserves. Now, there is new content that's not in the original Super Nintendo version of the game. The PlayStation port added anime cutscenes. The DS version added some additional content, and most of that stuff ended up getting ported to the PC version. Since I haven't done a test run for this, and since this is more of a personal Let's Play for me, I'm not going to do any of this additional content. I'm not going to show any of the additional videos. We're going to leave that for a potential future Let's Play years down the line if I get a hankering to play this game once again. So yeah, if you're looking for any of the new content, it will not be covered here. But once I can get my energy up long enough to actually get some episodes out there, we will begin with Let's Play Chrono Trigger. I hope you guys will join me for this, because it's going to be one hell of an interesting ride. Not only for me, but hopefully for you as well. Anyway, that's all for this one, and I'll see you guys next time.